20.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the 3rd and 20 Dynasty Podcast. We're on episode number 30. I'm joined here with Frank and Lounis. Jake unfortunately couldn't be with us today, but you know what? It's technically not April yet when we're recording it. By the time we put it out, it will be April, and that means we're in draft season, people. We're a month away, less than a month away from the draft, and what better to kick it off than some trades, some draft trades. So diving into our news and notes segments right away, the 49ers moved up in the draft with the Miami Dolphins by sending the number 3 pick to the 49ers the Dolphins sent the number 3 pick to the 49ers for the number 12 pick, a first-round pick and a third-round pick in 2022, and a first-round pick in 2023. Then the Dolphins took that 12th round pick that they just traded down to and traded up with the Eagles, where they traded a 2021, they traded the 12th pick, the 4th round pick in 2021, and 2022 first for Miami's 6th and a 5th, which it's a 5th. But, you know, big moves. What we essentially get with that from the first round is the Dolphins move down from 3 to 6, the Eagles move down from 6 to 12, and the 49ers move up from 12 to 3. So basically we're going to just dive into these trades, find out the winners and losers, what we think is going to happen at each spot. Frank, I'll throw it to you first. Who won the trade between the 49ers and the Dolphins?
You know, initially, I was thinking, hey, I think the 49ers won this just because the 49ers get their quarterback. But after doing the mock off season for the 49ers, like, I earlier in the draft process, it really felt like they could have got Mac Jones at 12, who I think that they want to get. That's what all the reports have been saying they wanted to get. That's who we took for them in the mock off season, in that mock draft that we did, because we're like, hey, Mac Jones, he's our guy. We think he's the dude that can really lead us in the future. But man, like when you put it out like that, the price that the Dolphins got moving back 3 picks is pretty ridiculous. So if there's a winner, I feel like it has to be them because they took the least amount of risk. They're probably going to get the same guy or one of the guys they were considering at 3. They pick up a whole plethora of draft capital. They have a ton of draft capital this year. Jesus Christ. Like, great deal for the Dolphins.
I was about to say, I think it's a big thing with Miami because I feel, at least like my most recent guesses before that trade was that they were going to take Jamar Chase at 3, maybe Pitts, but I think they could still probably get him at 6, and while picking up another first next year. So I really like that trade for the Dolphins. I guess now for them, it's just kind of like, now it's all on Tua. They have an elite defense. He's going to have weapons now. They already had Devontae Parker. They added Will Fuller. And I'm guessing they're going to add Chase or Pitts at 6, maybe Devonta Smith. And now it's like, it's kind of, okay, Tua, no excuses now this year. They're committing to him. They're passing on guys like Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Mac Jones to stick with him. So that's a big decision.
All right, Lounis, on the flip side, the Eagles actually decided to move down, and you're an Eagles fan. What do you think about that trade?
Yes. So my Jamar Chase dreams are over. I have to cancel the customized jersey order. I ordered him in Pitts. No, but I actually like the trade. There's a lot of spots on the roster that need to be filled. Like, when they won the Super Bowl a couple years ago, it wasn't a young roster. It was a ton of veterans, ton of older guys. So I don't mind that trade back to 12. And at 12, there's still a good chance that they'll probably grab either one of those top corners, or if somehow Devonta Smith falls, probably Jaylen Waddle will be on the board there at 12. So they might be able to pick him up there, which I would be really happy with that pick or any of the top corners. And then they have the potential to have 3 firsts next year. I think now what's just going to be interesting is it's Jalen Hurts really just has a year. Like, they're kind of telling him, like, hey, we might get you Jaylen Waddle, maybe not. Rager still might be your one, but you have this 1 year to prove yourself. And if you don't, we have potentially 3 first-rounders next year to trade up for a top QB. So he's going to have to prove himself this year too, and he really only has this one.
All right. And then So we've got to decide what we think's happening at pick 3, what we think's happening at pick 6, and what we think's happening at pick 12. You guys kind of alluded to it. Frank mentioned that he thinks it's Mac Jones, and that's what a lot of reporters are saying. I'm starting to believe that's 49ers smokescreens. We're in the smokescreens part of the year where NFL teams are trying to bash certain players that they like and trying to hop.
Why smokescreen in that position though? What are like the Jets and the Jags?
I don't disagree. I honestly don't think that they've necessarily. I think there's a good chance that they might like both guys there, and they might want to watch more tape and then figure it out then. I think JT's right though. Like, there's no benefit in showing your hand at this point.
Exactly, and not only that, right? Like, I know there's a lot of signs pointing to Zach Wilson going at 2, but I'm not convinced that the Jets don't decide, like, hey, we're just going to stick with Sam Darnold this year. I don't think it's the right move. But I'm not convinced that that's what they do. They might just move down with the Panthers or the Broncos. So a team that's willing to really spend up and really give it for, I don't know, maybe the Justin Fields or Trey Lance, whoever the 49ers actually want. I don't know. It's just something where NFL teams, they're always trying to one-up each other, so why are they going to tell each other what they're planning to do, just so they get screwed over by one of the other teams?
If the Jets don't take it, we have a draft live stream coming up the night of the draft that we're going to be doing. I will trying to think what I would do if the Jets don't take a QB. Table. I will crack 6 eggs on my head if for some reason the Jets decide to stick with Darnold.
I'm buying eggs.
I'll get them. I got eggs.
Oh, you're buying the eggs too? Okay.
Yeah,
what happens if they do draft a quarterback?
Man, I don't know.
You make some omelets, I guess.
I feel like I'm just kind of playing against the house. I'm taking the odds, so I won't make someone else do something.
One thing I do want to ask you guys though is that it's almost certain now that the Dolphins decided, hey, we're passing up on Penei Sewell, whether they wanted him or not. It's clear. It looks like they're taking a skill player at 6, whether it's Pitts, Chase, Devonta Smith, Waddle, whoever. Where would you rank the Dolphins as a landing spot for a receiver? Top half of the league, bottom half of the league. Do you like that if you're a big Jamar Chase fan? Let's just assume it's Jamar Chase. Yay, nay, medium, it doesn't matter. What's going on there?
It's just, it's difficult to say. Yeah, it's difficult to say because I want to compare it to teams that they're around, right? So the Bengals are a potential team that could go out and get Jamar Chase. I mean, I don't really think the Panthers will draft a receiver, but they're another one. The Broncos are also around there. All those kind of teams. I think the Giants are still up there too. So when I look at it in that regard, I would love for Jamar Chase to connect back with Joe Burrow on the Bengals. It does kind of become a crowded receiver room, but I think Jamar is a much more talented wide receiver than Tyler Boyd. So, it'll just be him and T. Higgins run that Cincinnati. Who actually Cincinnati fans hate Frank. Just fun fact.
Yeah, they were not happy with my Bengals video.
But
it's okay, you have the Cardinals fans.
That's true. Cardinals fans do like us. Shout out Cardinals fans. But when we're talking about stuff like that, right, and potential quarterbacks in those kind of situations, I think Miami's slightly above average, I would say. I still think Tua's a decent quarterback. I think he just kind of has to put it all together. I think he's got all those, traits. He just has to make it happen on the field and be a little more confident with his throws. So when we're talking like that, I feel like it's a fine place for Jamar Chase to go. I wouldn't be knocking him down my board if he ends up on the Dolphins, if that's what the question is.
I'm not a huge Tua guy. Not that I don't think he can be a starting QB in the NFL, because I think he can for a while. But do I think he's ever going to be kind of like that star level or Pro Bowl level? Personally, no. But here's the thing, though. I feel like we've seen so many times where like there's a receiver who's like, oh, I love him, he's so talented, but then it's like, oh, I hate that landing spot, I'm going to kind of move away. And then they prove you wrong. They're still like, I'm so good, I'm going to produce either way. Like we've seen people were scared about A.J. Brown landing in Tennessee because Tennessee's passing game had kind of been ass for a while leading up to that. Obviously, he was still Mariota, but he was even producing with Mariota. People were kind of iffy about the Jefferson landing spot in Minnesota because they were like, well, Diggs only did this last year, and that's with Thielen being hurt, and Thielen's back. So what can we expect from Jefferson? Jefferson balled out. So I'm not gonna let the situations change it my value of him too much, just because we've seen time and time again, like those talented receivers will still make plays and put up points. So that's why I say neutral, because I'm not like, it doesn't make me gain anything, but I'm not gonna put him down because I just think he's that good.
I mean, with that, do we just want to move straight into the wide receiver rankings then? I think that's a good place to go. We did this with Jake actually, but Jake couldn't be here to defend any of his hot takes. Although I feel like
you want to know what's interesting, JT, with Jake?
What's interesting?
I just found it interesting that, all the times during the mock drafts, remember when I was one pick ahead of him, I would pick Jaylen Waddle, and then he'd be like, "Oh, I took the guy you should have taken." And then now, if you look at his rankings, who does he have at number 2, JT?
He's joining the dark side. He's joining.
And
are
he's
we
not
the dark
here.
side?
We're the dark side.
I'm the last one on this ship, it seems like.
And he's
on this
running.
Devonta Smith ship. All of my fellow pirates have abandoned ship for other receivers,
Jake.
and I'm still here like, what's happened, boys?
Jake
All right. That's a good place to start, actually. So we all, for the exception of Frank, have Ja'Marr Chase as the number 1 wide receiver. Frank has Devonta Smith. I feel like we've debated this to death. Like, we're team Ja'Marr Chase. I'm not anti Devonta Smith, but at his price, I'm anti Devonta Smith. We could do this every week if we wanted to. I feel like any listener, if you just want to go back to any of our previous podcasts or YouTube videos, you'll find it. You'll find us debating Ja'Marr Chase, Devonta Smith, what we like and don't like. So I feel like we'll just move on from that, right? And then moving on to wide receiver 2 is where we get crazy. So,
JT, you're wild.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I am. we've got Jake and Lounis grouping together here at wide receiver 2 to pick Jaylen Waddle, who becomes our consensus wide receiver 2. Frank has Ja'Marr Chase, because obviously he didn't have him at 1. I guess I'm out on an island here. I've got Reshod Bateman as my number 2 wide receiver. I guess I could go through and kind of defend why I picked Reshod Bateman here. Again, this is another guy that I feel like we've talked about to kind of death, but I just feel like Reshod Bateman, while he's not specifically great at anything, I think he just has all of the tools at maybe not an elite level, but like a very much close to that kind of level where he's just a star player. Like, he's not going to be as fast as Jaylen Waddle. He's not going to run as crisp routes as Devonta Smith does, but he is just someone that I could see as the next. This is kind of a hot take. No. You take that back. You take that back right now. I think if I was to comp him, I just think like it's not a great comp because they're not similar. I see him more in similarity to like a Des Bryant type, but I think from production value, like he could be the next Devontae Adams. Like that's kind of where I see him. Obviously, it's going to take the right fit for that to happen, and right progression. But I think between him and Ja'Marr Chase, these are 2 wide receiver 1s that we're going to have for the next, 5-6 years. But I'm just really high on Bateman. And as we'll see later on, I guess I'm way higher on him than consensus.
Dude, to be honest, though, like, I'm not necessarily out on Reshod Bateman. I know I have him relatively low in my rankings. I think part of it is that I felt like I when I finished watching his tape, I watched a lot of tape on Reshod Bateman, and I really felt like I wanted to see a little bit more in all phases. Because you were saying, oh, well, he's a Des Bryant. Like, yeah, he had a couple contested catches, but it wasn't consistent. Like, he's got a good release. He's got good feet. His hands, meh at best, but he can improve. And it's like, if I compare him to the receivers last year, someone like Brandon Ayuk, who within 2 games, I was like, okay, this guy is a stud. Like, first-round pick receiver. I just haven't found that for a lot of these receivers, not just Reshod Bateman. Like, I think a lot of these guys that are in this, like, from pick rank 3 to like rank 18. It's like I have no idea what the hell is going to happen with them. I think that they all have a lot of flaws. So for me, Reshod Bateman, the first thing I need to see is some draft capital, which I'm not even sure I'm going to get, to be completely honest. But that's the minimum thing I need to see out of Reshod Bateman for me to believe in him. But at that point, then you got the JTs who are going to be picking him high in the first round.
I think draft capital is going to have a big impact because I've seen him, like, I remember early on in the offseason process he was going in that 20s range. Like, a lot of people had him mocked to Baltimore, for example, or like a Green Bay. I've seen him drop out of like a lot of people's top 50. So I think it's going to depend. Obviously, where he goes is going to be very telling.
If he ends up becoming like a third round pick, that's when I get a little worried. But anywhere in the top 2 rounds, I'm fine with. There were some studies that kind of showed that NFL teams, like, there really isn't a huge difference between players picked in the end of the middle/end of the first round compared to players picked at all in the second round. Then once you get to the third round and beyond, it gets kind of
I completely agree with that. I think people take way too much stock in the order of where they're picked and not are generally around where they are, because one thing that we don't see and don't hear is that teams pick players to fill specific roles in their offenses. They're not just out there and saying, well, some of the teams at least aren't just saying, okay, well, who's the best right guard? Let's just listen to this scout and whoever he says is the best. No, like they have to fit a specific role, a specific system. And it's the same thing with receivers. You know, if a team, say they like a slot receiver, but they already have that position filled, or they don't want to use that in their offense, then they're not going to pick that, even though they might have him higher on their board. I think people forget that a lot.
Yeah, exactly. It's just once you get into the day 3 kind of receivers, that's when there is the big drop off. It's much harder to break out when you're day 3 draft capital and beyond, undrafted. I guess that means beyond. But yeah. All right, so I guess that's enough time spent on me hyping up Reshod Bateman just for someone to steal him in front of me in our drafts. So moving on, Jaylen Waddle was our consensus number 2. So we got Jamar Chase 1, Jaylen Waddle 2. I guess I'm the lowest on him out of the bunch, but I have him at pick 3. Oh, no, wait. Frank has him at 6,
no, you're
actually.
not.
Yeah, Frank has him at 6. All right, Frank, why are you low on Jaylen Waddle?
Once again, he's just a receiver that, for me, when I watched the tape, I was left with a lot of question marks. I think he's good. I think he's a good player. It's just, I think the main problem I have with him is that I saw basically zero physicality in his game. And we've seen receivers that are speed guys not be able to play at the NFL because they aren't good physically. If you're going to compare him to Tyreek Hill, you got to realize that this Tyreek Hill likes to play physical. We said it on the last podcast. Tyreek Hill, if he doesn't immediately burn you off the line, he wants to get in that hand fighting, that jam, and he's got really good balance. The dude was a freaking running back, for God's sakes. Jaylen Waddle is not that. Jaylen Waddle is purely, I want to beat you with quickness, I want to beat you with footwork, and I want to beat you with speed. And because he didn't necessarily, like, listen, he's my 6th prospect, basically tied with Elijah Moore. It's not like I'm really low on him. It's just nowhere near Devonta Smith, in my opinion. I understand the whole BMI and profile concerns. It's just, I think he's a little bit too one-dimensional. I didn't really see him line up on the outside. I didn't see him play physical. For me, at the NFL, a lot of that stuff does not fly. Especially when you get later into seasons, there are teams that are just going to go press man on you. And you got to be able to beat that physicality from a lot of these quick D-backs.
Okay, Frank, you made 2 really great points, I think, there. Right? So, first you talked about, we're not, like, don't compare him to Tyreek Hill unless you're sure about it. I just think that's something that people keep doing with so many wide receivers, and it's like, guys, like, let's not worry about trying to find the next Tyreek Hill, because that's when you just overdraft players that end up being, you know, not relevant in fantasy.
I will say Waddle reminds me more of Tyreek than Henry Ruggs did last year.
Definitely.
For sure.
But
I think JT's right though. Why are we comparing any receiver to a guy that played running back at school, transitioned into receiver? There's not a whole lot of guys that have that skill set that he does.
exactly.
I think Waddle has that yards after catch ability. Tyreek
But
has.
it's different though. I don't even care about the yards after catch. He just plays so physical. Every time I see Tyreek Hill, he wants that fighting. He wants that. Jaylen Waddle, I've not seen one snap where he wants it. I got into an argument on Reddit with someone. It's not that he can't go up and catch a 50-50 ball. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how he wants to run his routes, how he wants to get open, how he wants to play as a receiver before he catches the ball. He doesn't want the physicality. He wants to beat you with his feet and his quickness.
I feel like Will Fuller is probably a better comp to Jaylen Waddle. I think Will Fuller is probably the guy that I think of when I think Jaylen Waddle, right? Because they're not big guys. They're as you said, they're not physical guys, but they are those guys that can be that deep threat too, though. But can also do stuff with the ball in their hands.
Trying to think what my comp is for him.
If you were to combine Will Fuller with Sterling Shepard, I think that
those are two really good comps. I feel like
for me,
I like that a lot.
Because for me, here's the thing with Waddle. I think he can play on the outside. I think at Bama he was asked to play inside a lot. I think he has the physical capabilities to play on the outside.
I don't disagree with that. It's just I'm not going to put him at my wide receiver too when I haven't seen it.
That's fair. But he did occasionally, but not as much this past season. But I will say with Waddle and the Will Fuller thing, I don't think it does enough justice to how much I think if you hit Waddle on an in route or a slant, he has a much higher chance of just beating a bunch of guys and taking that to the house than Will Fuller. I agree with the straight line speed aspect, but I just think I'm way more scared of Jaylen Waddle with the ball in his hands than I ever am of Will Fuller. Because Will Fuller, I'm scared of burning me deep. Not so much he may take this slant to the house.
See, it's funny. I think it's the other way around for me. I feel like I'm more... Not that I'm scared of Will Fuller with the ball in his hands, but I don't really feel like I'm too scared of Waddle with the ball in his hands.
Really?
No, not... Maybe on kick returns where there's more space, but... I think that people overestimate a little bit his yards after catch ability. I might be wrong there, but... I do really fear Waddle on an island one-on-one because he's one of the best double move receivers I think I've watched.
There's the thing that scares me about Jaylen Waddle. He'll make every defensive back's tackling angle trying to chase him down look so stupid. He's just going to outrun everyone so bad, and he has those kick return skills. I think that's kind of the thing that impressed me most. And that's, I think, one of the bigger differences also between him and Ruggs, because they're both speedsters. But I think... Well, Ruggs had pretty good ability afterward, just he was insanely fast, but I don't know. I just like Waddle.
Let's move on, though.
Yeah. All right. So, our next guy. So, again, we had Chase at 1. We had Waddle as our 2. Devonta Smith is our 3. And, again, it's something that we could run on until the cows come home. The biggest difference is I have him all the way down at 7. Frank has him at 1. We've said it a billion times. If you want to go listen to one of
Me and Jake have him at 3
episodes. Yeah, Jake and Lounis are with him at 3, so that makes him our 3rd wide receiver. I think we could just kind of skip over him. We've talked about him so much. Rondale Moore is our number 4 consensus, and we're pretty consistent in the most part. Where Lounis and I have him as the number. Actually, sorry, Jake and I have him as the number 4 wide receiver. Frank has him all the way up to number 3. Sorry, hold on.
I was going to say, I thought I had him at 4.
Jake and JT have him at 5. I have him at 3. Lounis has him at 4.
Yeah, sorry. Got my numbers mixed up. I can count, I swear. That does make him the consensus 4th overall receiver. He was someone that we talked about last week. We had a good clip on him where he came in and measured smaller than everyone thought he was going to be. But it's everyone knew he was small in the first place. So I feel like we're punishing him for being small twice, which I don't think is fair to Rondale Moore.
If you turn on the tape for 30 seconds, you kind of see that he's shorter than everyone.
Yeah, everyone. If Rondale Moore was 6 foot, he could be my wide receiver too. If he was 6'4" or 6'1".
Definitely would be. Yeah. But like
shortest guy in the room measures out to shortest guy in the room. Everyone shocked Pikachu face.
It's like we already knew this. Like if he was 6'1", he'd be, I think, my wide receiver too, honestly.
It's also like it's like we saw him at, like Frank said, like height isn't something that you could just hide. It's not like he's running around with high heels on. Like you look and you see like weight. I guess you could kind of be like, oh wow, he weighs less than I thought. Like maybe, I don't know, he just looks bigger with pads on or something. Like height is not something that you could just hide. So I feel like everyone's kind of making a bigger deal about it than what it was. We talked about that on the last episode as well. There's a lot of things to like about Rondale Moore. I sneaky think like he'll be a very good value pick for wherever he's going to end up in the draft. I think we could skip over him too. He's someone that we kind of, talked about in great detail.
You guys talked about him last episode too, yeah.
Yeah, so we're big on Rondale Moore. Probably bigger than consensus, which we'll talk about. At number 5, someone that I just called the next Davante Adams, which I am already kind of feeling lukewarm on, but I'm going to stick to it. We've got Reshod Bateman at 5. Moving on to number 6, someone that we have not covered yet, and we've only covered, I think, one other episode in the past. We've got Dyami Brown, and that's mostly powered by me and Frank having him at 4. Lounis has Dyami Brown at 7 in his rankings, and Jake, I don't even know where Jake has him at 8.
8.
So Frank and I have him at 4. Jake has him at 8. Lounis has him at 7. Dyami Brown, UNC. He actually ran a 4.4 at his pro day, so...
No way.
Yeah. No,
I like
sorry,
him
4.44. 4.44. Not 4.4 flat. 4.44.
Checks every box,
But,
dude. He literally checks every freaking box.
So my thing about Dyami Brown, right, was people were saying that he drops passes and he can't. He's not fast. Like he doesn't have it. I've been saying for a
People
while
saying
now.
he's not fast?
Apparently.
Yeah. Well, go look on Reddit, Lounis. Go look on Reddit.
I believe you. I'm just saying that's so dumb.
We'll talk about him. We'll talk about him in the future with where consensus has him versus where we have him. But yeah, Frank just mentioned it. He checks every box. I feel like I just think he's going to be that. Other than Chase and Bateman, and I feel like maybe Waddle. I just feel a little more comfortable in where Waddle. Like the floor of Waddle, but I truly believe Dyami Brown has one of the higher ceilings next to Chase and Bateman, in that he could be that alpha receiver for a team. I don't know about you, Frank. What do you think? What do you like about Dyami Brown?
So for Dyami Brown, he is basically the only receiver that watching tape this season I fell in love with. Devonta Smith, I already had a high grade on last year, so like me saying I like him is. Okay, who cares? Like, old news. Same thing with Jamar Chase. We all knew he was good last year. For me, same thing with Rondale Moore. Those are my top 3 guys coming in. But Dyami Brown, I turn on the UNC games because, first off, watching UNC is great. I freaking love that program. They are awesome. They all play so hard.
That entire offense is really entertaining to watch because you got their 2 running backs who are going to go this year, Dyami Brown, and then Howell, who's supposed to be a top 3 QB next year. So there was I don't
want to get into Howell because I've got some takes on Howell that people aren't going to like.
That'll come in the future.
But Dyami Brown, dude, I was really shocked because I know JT had been saying all offseason, oh, Dyami Brown, like, very good, very good. And I just never watched him. Dude, I turn on the tape and he's not necessarily making a ton of plays, but I think, A, the offense did hinder him a little bit. B, his skill set translates to the NFL perfectly. This is a guy, it's like when I watched Chase Claypool last year. You just look at him and you're like, well, they definitely could have used him more. He wins the reps. He's a huge deep threat. He's good with the ball in his hands. Yeah, he has a couple focus drops, but I'm not going to kill a guy for a D-back making a nice play on a couple of plays and him just turning his head up before looking the ball in. It's happened to the best. Like, listen, I'm going to say Antonio Brown's a bad receiver because early in his career he drops a screen pass looking ahead. Everyone does it. Dyami Brown, the 1.5 receiver that I fell in love with watching tape this year. I have him at number 4, same tier as Rondale Moore. I actually think that there's a slightly decent chance that he can get some good draft capital in the NFL draft. I wouldn't be surprised if he went towards the end of the first round.
As long as he's drafted in the top 3 rounds, I'm loving Dyami Brown wherever he goes. One more thing about him, Frank. I've got a sneaky comp on him. You're a Steelers fan. What do you think about like Santonio Holmes? Do you think I feel like when I see him, I get a lot of Santonio Holmes vibes from Dyami.
Who did Chris Sims comp him to? Didn't Chris Sims comp him to Odell?
Damn, I'll take these comps.
I wouldn't be. I feel like when the ball's in the air, that's probably when he comps him to OBJ, because it's kind of like if you watch him play, like he's kind of just running, and all of a sudden, like he's faster than the corner next to him out of nowhere, kind of, and the ball he gets like right underneath it. I forget what team it's against. I'm describing kind of a specific play, but there is a pattern of that happening. So yeah, I do see the Odell when the ball's in the air. From the line of scrimmage and lining up and stuff, I don't know if I necessarily see that with Odell, but I'm not upset with it.
Yeah. In terms of Santonio Holmes, I don't think he necessarily has the shake, but he's more physical.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're just comping him to some great wide receivers. So I guess we are very high on Dyami Brown.
Yeah, I do want to say, like, wide receiver 7 sounds kind of low. I really like it. Like, I think I agree with you guys. He has one of the highest ceilings in this draft. It's just there's so many receivers that I do like in this draft. It was hard putting him ahead of some others. Like, I put him ahead of Bateman. I put him ahead of Terrace Marshall. There's just some guys that I'm like, it's hard for me to put him ahead of Rondale Moore or Toney or Elijah Moore. Like, so yeah, I mean, we'll get into those guys in a little bit. But.
Yeah. All right. So. He was actually, based on our consensus, he's tied with Reshod Bateman for number 5. So whichever one you want to put 5, 6, Bateman, Dyami Brown, that's who they are. Moving on to what ends up being the 7th wide receiver in our consensus ranking is Elijah Moore. It looks like I might be the lowest on Elijah Moore. I've got him at 8. Jake's got him at 6, as well as Frank, and Lounis has him all the way up on 5. I kind of feel like when we're talking about Elijah Moore, what Lounis just said about Dyami Brown is how I kind of feel about Elijah Moore. I don't dislike him. I just kind of like everyone else above him. I don't think, obviously, I feel like everyone here will agree he's not an alpha. Like, I don't think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 on the team. Do either of you disagree with that?
I think he could lead the team in catches, but I don't think he's like a conventional outside like X receiver.
Yeah, same. I think he can definitely produce, but yeah, he's not going to be like that prototypical number 1.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about him in the past. For me, it's just like he's good at most things. I don't know if he's great at anything.
I was a little underwhelmed with this tape, to be honest, with how much people were hyping him up and looking at all those like r/dynasty like separation and route running clips and like highlight things. I was expecting a little bit more out of him.
What aspects were you let down from? Like, is there something you were looking for that you were kind of like in?
Well, first off, I hate that Ole Miss offense, to be completely honest.
I was about to say I wasn't a big fan of that offense this year.
So that's the first thing I'll lead off with. I have never liked that offense, to be honest, for any of the receivers that came out. I've been pretty high on a lot of their receivers. I don't know. I think I was expecting a little bit more in like, I guess like that short intermediate phase of the field. I think like a lot of his production was kind of schemed up to a certain extent. Like, not all of it, don't get me wrong. Like, he made some really good plays, but let's not act like he didn't get a fair share of basically run plays, like all those screens and that bull crap that definitely inflated his stats a little bit.
That's fair.
My prediction for Elijah Moore is, it's kind of unfair because I'm predicting where he goes, but I see a team like the Ravens being the one to draft him, and then his value just kind of plummets.
I hate that fit. I
see it in my head. I see it coming up. Elijah Moore to the Ravens.
I'd be so mad.
I'm really scared he's going to become like the next Anthony Miller.
Yeah,
Did he run a 40 yet? Does anyone know his time?
Yeah, he actually ran a 4. a 4.33, I think. It was a really fast 40.
Ooh, damn.
Yeah.
These pro day times are getting crazy out here.
Again, it is pro day.
Because I was gonna say, you know who might kind of be my comp for him. Kind of reminds me. I think he has some Curtis Samuel in him.
Yeah, I can see that.
Especially how Curtis was in Ohio State too, with kind of using him in a lot of those run plays and just kind of scheming plays for him. I thought he reminded me of that insane route running around 4.3 speed, playing in the slot a lot, but can play outside. That's who he kind of initially reminded me of. I don't know if that's a perfect comp because I didn't go like fully in depth thinking of every receiver, but that was a name that came to mind.
I mean, what you just described me kind of feels more like a Tyler Lockett like player. And in that case, like, he is going to need like a solid QB, I feel like, to be, relevant. I think his talent's good, just not great. Like, this is kind of where I'm starting to feel like I'm starting to pump the brakes a little bit on these guys. I'm not totally
for me, it's
them.
like, I like him, but I'm not taking him if I had 112. I'm not that high on him. Whereas with Dyami Brown, I would.
Exactly, yeah. All right, let's move on. So now we're moving on to, we're only doing 10 of these, so we're on wide receiver 8. And this guy's an interesting one because I feel like Jake's normally the highest on him. And it appears that he is in this case too, so Jake can't really go back to bat for his guy. I always screw it up. Is it Tylan or Tylan Wallace?
I think
Tylan Wallace.
Tylan Wallace. Tylan Wallace.
I love Tylan Wallace.
Yeah, I think he's pretty good too. I have him as my wide receiver 9. He's our wide receiver 8 overall, Tylan Wallace. I have him at 9. Jake's got him at 7. Frank's also got him at 9. Lounis, he's your 10th. So we all kind of have him over the board. What Jake having him at 7? 10th.
Oh yeah, he's my 10th.
Yeah, Jake having him at 7 is kind of what pushes him up. So Jake can't really.
I can't believe he's ahead of my guy.
But Frank, if you want it, you said you love Tylan Wallace. What's there to love about him?
Dude, I've had Tylan Wallace on my radar for a while. I really, really like him. I think his game does translate to the NFL. I do have some major question marks, which is why I kind of have him. Like, honestly, from receiver 7, who my current receiver 7 would be Tamarion Terry, all the way to, like, probably receiver 13 or 14. They all have a very similar talent level. There's a lot of questions with Tylan Wallace. It's like, I really think his release is bad. And he plays in the Big 12, which is, like, major red flags if you look at Big 12 receivers from the past. But dude, this guy, he just is able to find the football. I remember the game against Tulsa where their quarterback got hurt, and their offense literally became, hey, let's just chuck the ball up to Tylan Wallace, and he made plays, and that works in the NFL. I think he's got good feel. Apparently, he ran like a 4.3 something at his pro day, which honestly shocked the crap out of me.
Yeah,
he does not look like
I didn't know that.
Tape.
I don't think I changed my rankings, but that definitely makes me like him more. If that's a legit time.
if he gets second round draft capital, then I will be much higher on him. But until I see that, until I see an NFL team really believe in him, I haven't seen it consistently enough on tape for me to just buy him outright.
Him and one other wide receiver that we're going to talk about. I know I'm the analytical guy on here. Him and one other wide receiver that we will get to in a minute are the two that don't really check all of the boxes from an analytical standpoint, but they're the ones that I am still willing to kind of, I don't know if necessarily reach is the right word, but like the guys are like, I don't know where you guys were taking them in your consensus. We'll talk about that later, but I wouldn't be upset taking him mid-second round, maybe even mid to early, depending on who's around the board. So he is someone I guess that I would be okay reaching for at what his current consensus value is. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add on him if you guys want to.
He's at a good price right now, which is what's very nice about it, is that you do not have to give up a ton. Like, because I have him at a very similar rating to someone like a Reshod Bateman, which I understand is off consensus, but the price that I have to pay for the two of them is that I can literally drop an entire round and still land Tylan Wallace in some drafts, at least as of right now.
Yeah. We'll get to that when we're going to do a whole consensus breakdown. But yeah, all right. So to wrap up, to sum up the most recent picks, from 5 we got Bateman and Dyami Brown kind of tied. Then so they're 5 and 6. At 7's Elijah Moore. 8 is Tylan Wallace, and then now we're at 9. Terrace Marshall. He's someone that I've been the high piper for, I guess. I've been saying great things about Terrace Marshall. He's from LSU. He was playing with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. He's the other guy that I just mentioned that doesn't technically check all of the production standpoint and whatnot from an analytical sense, but he is someone that I'm definitely willing to reach for in the draft. I had a great line that I wanted.
He's the Kelvin Harmon to DK Metcalf and AJ Brown.
I disagree. Strong disagree. I can't think of a team with 3 great wide receivers on it because Alabama's not that. They don't have like the 3 great ones. But
last year they did. They had 4.
They're not great though, right?
Lunis be like Florida.
Kyle Pitts is so big he counts as 2.
All right, why do you like Terrace Marshall? Aside from the fact that he doesn't fit analytics.
The pat on my back kind of line that I had earlier is I just think he's going to be what like people wanted Denzel Mims to be. I said that a while ago when we were talking about him and we were first getting into him. He does kind of check like decent amount of boxes. It's just like he doesn't get that production standpoint, but like can you blame him when he's playing on a team with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase? Justin Jefferson just had a rookie record-setting year on LSU, and Jamar Chase is considered one of the top wide receiver prospects to come out recently. So it's hard for me to blame him. I guess it is kind of hypocritical of me to say that when Devonta Smith doesn't do the same thing, but I just think the wide receivers at LSU are significantly better than the wide receivers at Alabama when it comes to what their pro style is going to be and what they'll do in the pros. But he does have that alpha wide receiver. He's like 6'3", 200 pounds. Like he's an alpha wide receiver for me. So he's someone that I'm willing to take the risk on because once we get past Terrace Marshall, there are some big speedy wide receivers that we still have listed, but I feel like none of them are as like they're more raw than what I think Terrace Marshall is. If that makes sense. I think Terrace Marshall is the one that's most likely to have success out of that next kind of group of guys.
All right, Loon, you're up. Last one is Toney.
So this is just blatant disrespect.
Oh, no.
This is blatant disrespect.
Wait till you get to consensus, people.
Which of you little shits didn't have him on your top 10?
All of us except for you.
Yeah, you're the only one that had him on the top 10.
To be fair, Lunis, I was very close to having him there because he's in that tier. Like I could easily replace him with Tamarion Terry.
How does your guys' opinion changes if he goes late first, early second in real life?
No, not at all. In fact, I'd be more afraid of drafting him there.
Does he enter? He doesn't enter your top 10.
No. I don't even know if he enters my top 15. I don't know if he enters my top 15.
I think it depends on what team he went to.
Did you watch the games?
Yeah, I've seen Kardarius Toney play.
Let me hear why Toney is not in your top 10.
Why
this is your job to tell us why he is in the top 10.
Okay, I'll tell you why he's in the top 10. Because for a lot of the same reasons Rondale Moore is loved, I think Toney can do a lot of those same abilities. I don't think he's as kind of explosive. Well, actually, I think he's a little bit quicker. I think Rondale Moore's just a little bit more built and stronger. But he's bigger than, like, I don't think a lot of people knew Toney is 6 foot. So he's got good height and weight. And then also just, he was making explosive plays all year. Like, he makes defenders in the SEC just look like they hadn't played football before ever. How I see him projecting, I see him like a Deebo Samuel type player in the NFL. A player that offenses are going to give him a lot of screens, a lot of end arounds. And he can make, I don't think he's quite as strong as Deebo, but I think he's quicker than he is. And I see him kind of filling that role in the NFL where it's just, he's someone where if you get the ball in his hands, he's just going to make ridiculous plays. I don't know if there's a quicker player in the draft than him. Receiver-wise, that like just makes people miss as much as Toney does with the ball in his hands. Who would you say does that better than Kardarius Toney in this draft?
Does it?
I'll give you that. I just think he's raw as fuck. Like, I'm taking a player And I need to know that he's on a team that has an emphasis on developing players, because if they expect him to go in there day one and be, let's say, Antonio Brown and play that role out the get-go, it's like, well, then you're setting him up for failure. But I agree with you. I like him, but I'm not going to go out here and put him in like my top 6 like you are. I don't believe in him that much.
Part of why I put
just
him
think
there
he's
is
a very
because
risky prospect.
I think he's going early, like, not early, but like I think he's gonna have really good draft capital. And
yeah, I do too. But I think that's more so off of his athletic ability than it is off of him being a really good receiver.
He'll probably be a better real life player. Well, no, he'll definitely be a better real life player than fantasy player, because fantasy wise, I don't think he's going to ever amount to much. Like when we look at his college production, right? Like, I get that he was transitioning to a wide receiver, but this is the only year, his senior year, where he had over 500 yards of production of yards from scrimmage. Right, this is the only year he had over 500 yards from scrimmage, and it took him to be a senior playing with Kyle Trask, who is one of the best quarterbacks in college right now, and there's just way too much of like red flags for me with Kardarius Toney that I'm not touching him wherever
he's
he's
doing it
going
against some of the best defenses too. LSU's defense and Alabama's defense, he torched both of them.
I'll draft him. I'm not gonna reach for him though. Like if it's good ADP, I'll pick him. But like you're valuing him at an early second round pick, which I wouldn't. Yeah. I don't think I'd draft him right now at an early second. Like that mid to late second. Like if I'm a team that I had a bunch of draft picks, right? I had like 3 picks before 205, and then I'm sitting there 207, and I see Toney. Then yeah, I'd love to take a really risky prospect like Toney. But if I'm a team that I have no first round pick, 2 second round picks, and I need to hit on some players, I am not taking a prospect that I deem as risky as Toney is.
I'm not even taking him in the third. I want no part of Kardarius.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I'm so out on Kardarius.
JT,
I'm not a Devonta Smith hater. I'm a Kardarius Toney hater.
You better hope he's a bust. Oh my god!
I know he's going to be a bust.
I'm getting all these clips ready next season. All of them ready. And
clip it, Frank. Clip it. I don't know what bet we should make.
I'll get them. From the mock drafts we did, from this. Oh, man, you better hope he's a bust. You better hope so.
In your wildest dreams, what do you expect Kardarius Toney to be? Like I know you mentioned, like, Deebo Samuel, but, like, fantasy-wise production, like, what's he hitting? What number? Give me a number per game. How many points per game is he getting?
Like, as a rookie or in his prime?
His prime. Like, say, year 3 Kardarius Toney.
Well, I think prime Toney is like prime Percy Harvin in Minnesota.
Why?
He just says, when I watch both of them, that's who he reminds me of. Just with how I'd say maybe he's not quite as straight line speed fast, but I think he can put up years with over 1,000 total yards. I think probably in his prime over 1,100 total yards. Yeah, and I think he can also score a decent amount. I just think he's someone that offenses are going to get the ball in his hands a ton, and he's just going to make defenders look stupid. He did it to Alabama. He had that entire defense smoked for that entire game. I think he had like 150 receiving yards or something. And then LSU, he smoked even worse. Like, those are two really good SEC defenses. Texas A&M, he played well against. I think he had 2 touchdowns against Texas A&M. Frank's typing something. Do I have the clowness?
No, you don't. But, all right.
Oh.
One last thing, and we'll move on. Lounis, about I think it's like 16.5 points per game is a wide receiver 1, and I think it's like 12 points per game is a wide receiver 2. Is Kardarius Toney like in that ever in his career? Is he like a normal mainstay 12 point per game kind of guy?
I definitely think like when like he's like in stride, like maybe not first year, but like towards like around his prime, the years before, years after, I think he could be a really good wide receiver too.
All right, I just don't see it.
Right,
I just wanted to get you on tape saying that.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on. We talked about trades, and we talked about the Dolphins, Eagles, and 49ers making trades. So now we kind of want to do something fun here where we predict the next trade that's going to happen with the NFL draft. We're talking off stream about it earlier. Frank, who do you think's going to be the team that makes the trade? What do you think's happening?
Like, how big are we talking? Like, draft big
As
trade?
big as your wildest dreams. Like,
All right, I'll give you two real quick. How about that? I'll give you one kind of small, but then one kind of big.
okay.
First one, Sam Darnold gets dealt. I think we all know it's happening. It's got to happen sooner or later. Sam Darnold's going somewhere. To where? Dolphins. Why not? In division. I don't know. I just picked a random team that kind of needed a backup quarterback. I think the next one though is why not the Bengals or the Falcons trading down if a team likes Trey Lance? Because my whole thing is with the Bengals is that a lot of people are saying they'll take Penei Sewell. Well, this is a team that has 2 tackles. Apparently, they still really like Jonah Williams. So if they were to pick up an offensive lineman, I would think that they'd want it to be on the interior. Not that you can't put Sewell on the interior. It's just, you're spending the 5th pick in the draft to move a tackle to guard. It's just a little weird. This is a team that, to me, needs help on the defensive side of the ball more than the offensive side of the ball. So if you're able to get a king's ransom for that pick where you're getting almost like a whole slew of draft picks or maybe future draft picks, I don't see why the Bengals can't be a team that can trade down instead of being this team that everyone seems is a lock to pick Penei Sewell.
See, here's the thing with the Bengals. I don't think, like you're saying, if someone wants Trey Lance, right, to trade up with the Bengals,
I never said that.
Whichever QB.
Yeah, that's right.
But so here's the problem. That trade wouldn't happen until, unless you're saying at this moment too, that trade won't happen until people see Atlanta pick a non-quarterback. Because imagine trading up to that Cincinnati pick for your QB, then after you make that trade, someone trades up with Atlanta and takes it.
Atlanta would pick, right? You're right, but
because that's what I think ends up happening. Maybe Atlanta drafts a quarterback, maybe I don't know, but I can just say that
I think they take Penei Sewell.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. I think if they stay put, that's probably who I would guess. But I think that number 4 pick is going to end up being a QB. I don't think it'll be the Falcons. I think someone's going to end up overpaying to make sure that they get one of those top 4 or 5 quarterbacks at 4.
I actually don't think that pick's going to be quarterback. I think it was Adam Schefter said, there's going to be 4 quarterbacks going in the top 5 picks. I just don't think the NFL is willing to do that. But for my prediction and why I think it's going to happen, I think the Panthers and the Broncos are going to get into a bidding war with each other for the Lions pick.
4th pick? Oh, for the Lions pick. No, the
Lions pick. Yeah. So the Broncos, I think we're going to get kind of like a draft day of the movie scenario where the Broncos are going to try and jump the Panthers to get to that 7th pick, right? But the Lions are going to turn around and go, we could probably get more value for this. Let's just go ask the Panthers. The Lions want to draft you. The Broncos want to trade with us. They want our 7th pick. And then the Panthers are going to just be like, screw it. We'll give more than what the Broncos are willing to pick. And then whichever team gets there, whatever quarterback falls to them, I feel like it's going to end up being the Panthers trade with the Lions to move up one more pick, and they take Trey Lance at pick number 7. That's my prediction for the next trade.
I'd say that'd be interesting. That'd be really interesting. Sorry, I just lagged for a second on my screen.
A little bidding war action? I like it.
I hope so. That'd be exciting.
I felt like I'd make it a little spicy.
I just want one of those guys in Carolina so bad.
While we're talking about quarterbacks and trading up for quarterbacks, I've got some interesting stuff and this is gonna real quick an obligatory starting this off. Fuck you, JT, because I know you're gonna be all like twiddling your thumbs over here over me hyping up Justin Fields with this data. But basically, I spent some time the past 2 days looking at the rushing upside of quarterbacks in Dynasty, mainly from last year, because in the subreddit, the r/Dynasty, r/Fantasy Football, all the stuff, you always hear the terms rushing floor, rushing upside being thrown around. And I actually just kind of wanted to go out here and see what the hell was going on. And long story short, it's real. Unsurprisingly, right? Quarterbacks that can run get more fantasy points on average. Now, it's not always the case. You can look at Cam Newton, and he's a meddling quarterback, right? He finished somewhere as a QB2, and someone like Tom Brady was a top 10 quarterback, so it's not a for sure thing. But the data was kind of interesting. So the first thing I wanted to do with this is that there is a clear difference, to me at least, between rushing floor and rushing upside. And I define that difference as rushing upside is your Kyler Murray and your Lamar Jackson. A guy that somewhere between 35 to even 50% of their overall fantasy production will be from running. That is rushing upside to me. A guy that can carry their fantasy production with rushing. So Kyler Murray last year, 38.54% of his fantasy production was rushing. Lamar Jackson, 42.22%. They were both top 10 quarterbacks. Kyler Murray finishing number 1 through 16 games. Rushing floor, on the other hand, is your Russell Wilson, your Josh Allen, your Deshaun Watson. That guy that's going to give you a stable little 400 rushing yards, a handful of touchdowns, anywhere between 3 to 6 touchdowns, that gives you a nice 60 to 80 point floor that if you have an average passing year compared to other quarterbacks, that will propel you into the top 10. And to further drive this home, if you take someone who has less of a rushing floor than I said, those Russell Wilsons and Deshaun Watsons, and give him the rushing floor of Ryan Tannehill, who had 228 yards, 5 touchdowns, a decent rushing year. If you gave that rushing floor to Ben Roethlisberger last season, Ben Roethlisberger would have finished quarterback 6 through 16 games last year.
Instead of what?
Instead of quarterback somewhere between 13 to 15, somewhere around there.
Damn, yeah, so it's a big jump.
It's a little bit. Yeah, it is. It's a big jump.
Yeah,
he went from a quarterback 2 to
a
decent quarterback 1. So I kind of wanted to pull this together and what about the draft? Because I see everyone saying, oh, well, the QB2 or QB3 in the draft, in their Dynasty League draft, is going to be whoever lands in San Francisco, whether it's Justin Fields, Mac Jones, or Trey Lance. And I know JT has been adamant about having Justin Fields as QB2. And I think this data legitimately supports that, in that you still have to be a top half of the league passer. If you're one of these guys that wants to have a rushing floor, you still need to be a very good passer of the football. But at the end of the day, if you have Justin Fields and Mac Jones as the same rating of passers, or at least very similar, then there's definitely merit to having Justin Fields rated a decent bit higher, because if they pan out, Justin Fields will be able to get that rushing floor that we've seen to where he can have a very average year, or above average year. What Derek Carr did this season, Big Ben, Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, Matt Stafford, even Baker Mayfield, and be a quarterback 1. Whereas Mac Jones legitimately has to have a Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers-esque season to be a quarterback 1.
I think it's interesting, the quarterback floor, and I brought this point up in our little group chat earlier. Even someone, now here's the tricky situation: the quarterbacks who have a super good rushing floor but aren't as talented as passers, when they start, you can expect a lot of fantasy production, but it's also the fear of how long do you count on them to be a starter for. And the example I brought up was Jalen Hurts, which is why Frank made the point of they still need to be a top half passer where you're confident that they're going to be starting a while. Because that rushing floor, Hurts, when he started and finished games, was a very good fantasy quarterback. But his value kind of gets wavy because no one knows, God knows if he ever starts again after the season. So I think that brings up a really good point, especially when we're comparing these rookies and comparing Justin Fields to a Zach Wilson or Mac Jones. So I don't know here's what I'll ask you guys. Say, considering the rushing floor, say Lawrence goes to obviously Jacksonville. Say Justin Fields goes to Carolina. how far away fantasy-wise with Fields rushing for do you have him behind Lawrence?
Fields would have a better rushing floor.
No, not rushing
or
floor.
are you saying
I'm
how
sorry.
much does like
With
the
his
rushing floor make up?
Yeah.
Oh.
How far away from Lawrence is Fields fantasy-wise?
That's tough. Now, the one I like what you brought up about the longevity, because that's one thing we just haven't been able to see, right? Because we haven't seen this modern quarterback with the rushing floors. We don't know how long this lasts. We just don't really have the data points. That's a really good point. I honestly don't really know.
Let me think.
For me,
JT, let me hear yours.
yeah. So I'm very big on Justin Fields, but like I also really like Trevor Lawrence, right?
Obviously,
But-
and Trevor Lawrence it's not like he can't run. I don't think obviously he's as good as Fields, but he can run.
I have his total. So if we have their last season of playing transitioned into fantasy points, Trevor Lawrence did meet that rushing floor we were talking about, with 24.36% of his total production being rushing. The only problem is that 17 of that 24% was rushing touchdowns.
So a lot of goal line stuff.
Yeah.
When he's like kind of a big QB. I have a question. How do the other QBs rank with that? Do you have that on our?
Yeah, I have it right here. So Zach Wilson, I'll just go by rushing percentages. Zach Wilson, 23.78% of his production was running, but once again, 16.7% of that touchdowns. Justin Fields, 29.9% running, with 13% of that being touchdowns. So legitimate running.
Yeah.
And Kellen Mond was the other one. 24.87% of his total production was running, 11.18 touchdowns. And then Trey Lance in 2019, 46.47% of his total production was rushing, which I actually think is a little bit scary, because you're almost asking him by this profile to be a Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson-esque runner, which I don't think he is.
No, I think in the NFL he'd be more of like a Tannehill, maybe Ryan, maybe
Yeah, exactly.
Allen. His high end would be Josh Allen with rushing.
Do you guys want to just take all those quarterbacks and move it to consensus now? And we could talk about where we.
Yeah, let's talk about consensus.
Yeah, so I've got something to drop on you guys real quick before we talk about.
Don't drop anything.
I'm getting lower and lower on Zach Wilson as it goes on. As people get higher and higher on him, I'm getting lower and lower. That's all. We could talk about on next episode.
I got him QB3. Are you putting him below QB3?
He's there with Trey Lance. I think I've got him at QB4 after Trey Lance.
So now he's behind Trey Lance for you.
Yeah, and Frank mentioned earlier the quarterback 2, whoever goes to San Francisco. Well, I fully believe it's going to be Justin Fields to San Francisco at quarterback 2. So he's my quarterback 2. All right, so let's go by like a 5-player by 5-player thing, guiding through our consensus. Jake's not here with us again, but we are taking our big board, our first 3 rounds, and we're comparing it to mock drafts that we found in the consensus of mock drafts, right? So we'll go all by like a 5-player by 5-player basis. So when we're looking at this, right, our first 5 and the 5 players are pretty similar. We've got Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Jamar Chase, Javonte Williams as our 5th. And consensus has Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Jamar Chase, Zach Wilson, Najee Harris as their 5th. And we're really looking at where this podcast, where this YouTube channel really differs from, the consensus rankings. And the first player that we find is Najee Harris. We have Najee Harris all the way down as our...
He's RB3 on our board, right?
Yes.
He's at consensus pick 12 for us, which
Yeah.
I thought was pretty low, to be honest.
Yeah. We have Najee Harris considered pick 12, while consensus has him at pick 5.
I thought it was low, but when I went pick by pick, I'd take this guy over Najee.
Exactly. I just think he's the easily most overhyped player coming out of this draft class, with Zach Wilson starting to pick up pace, I feel like. Those are the 2 guys I think are starting to become very overhyped. We've talked about before.
I
about
don't
Najee
disagree
Harris.
with that.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, like I don't disagree that he's overhyped. I think right now he's being overpicked, like 105.
Are you talking about
especially
Are you talking about Wilson or Najee?
Najee Harris.
Okay.
Like in this draft, Najee Harris, I do not have him as a tier 1 running back prospect. Like comparing, last year's running backs and this year's running backs, where Javonte Williams I do have as a tier 1 running back prospect. So like that in and of itself, considering the fact that there are a bunch of really freaking good quarterbacks, 2 tier 1 receivers, and a tier 1 tight end, on top of the fact that we just have Javonte Williams over, I can see why, all of a sudden you just start going pick by pick, and for us, Najee Harris falls. Now, I think the one thing that I will say is that it does depend on your team makeup a little bit in terms of whether or not I pick a running back. Because, like, on my board, this is going to get scoffed at, but I have Kellen Mond and Mac Jones right around Najee Harris. And people are going to be shocked by that, but at the end of the day, the quarterbacks carry so much value in these Superflex leagues that there is a legitimate argument. If I'm a team that has a really competitive roster, then I will gladly take Najee Harris or Travis Etienne, even maybe over a Kyle Pitts, if I need that running back to help me compete. But if I'm a rebuilding team, I just like these quarterbacks more. And realistically, I would look to trade down if my league mates are all like, oh, Najee Harris this, Najee Harris that. Like, he's a good player, but realistically, it's like in this type of draft with all these really good quarterback prospects and these top-tier receiver prospects, I just think he's lower than these guys.
Every time I see Najee Harris film, I always just think, can you imagine if it was Javonte Williams behind that O-line?
Yeah, I mean, North Carolina had a good O-line.
I mean, yeah, no, not that theirs was bad, but Bama's, and with like that passing game to kind of take some of the pressure. Not that North Carolina passing game was bad, but phew.
The only thing that does have me kind of cooling down on Javonte Williams is he didn't have a great pro day. Again,
are you talking about his 40 time?
Yeah, pro day doesn't really change a whole lot for me, but it does have me like I had him as the clear number 1 running back. Now I still think he is, but it definitely gets murkier. But
I think for me with pro day, he ran a 4.55,
something like that. Yeah.
I think for me, I project him to be kind of a Nick Chubb type running back, and Nick Chubb ran a 4.52. So I
mean, I think though Nick Chubb is just a way better pure runner. But let's move on.
He's not gonna be. But I'm saying type running back.
Yeah, that's kind of a key word. I'm trying to move off that, saying stuff like that. But all right, moving on. So our picks 6 through 10, we've got Kyle Pitts, Trey Lance, Devonta Smith, Jaylen Waddle, and Travis Etienne, compared to consensus which has Trey Lance, Javonte Williams, Travis Etienne, Kyle Pitts, Devonta Smith. So the big one here that we're much different than consensus on is Kyle Pitts, right? We have him at 106, they have him at 109. That's a pretty significant difference when we're talking first round picks.
We should real quick. We should put these 2 lists in the bio too, so it kind of helps viewers follow, like our top.
I think that's a good idea.
All right, Lynn.
But what was I gonna say? So, we've talked about Kyle Pitts a decent amount, and Lounis and I are both of the we're saying we think he's probably the second best pass catcher next to Jamar Chase out of this class. I think people keep throwing it out there. He's the best tight end prospect they've seen in a while. I'm willing, I'm willing to, if it's especially in tight end premium, he could be a top 5 pick for me in tight end premium. Probably pick 5, but top 5 nonetheless. Yeah, that's just what I feel about Kyle Pitts. We've talked about him a lot. He's actually very young too. He's only going to be 20 when he enters the NFL, which is something that's kind of crazy. He's got a long time to develop too, and we know tight ends. Yeah, we know tight ends do take the longest to develop typically. So I'm willing to wait it out forever with Kyle Pitts. I love the process.
He's going to jump up boards though. When he gets picked top 10, people are going to start falling.
Yeah, but I feel like at this point everyone kind of knows he should be going.
He's going to go top 10.
They know it, but they haven't seen it. That's the problem.
He's going to be in his 3rd season. I'm pretty much as old as Najee Harris is right now.
That's wild to think about. I mean, that's essentially what Ronald Jones is doing too.
Yeah.
All right, but let's move on. So this one's kind of the juicy one of the group, right? So we have let's see. We have we have Mac Jones at 11, Najee Harris 12, Rondale Moore 13, Reshod Bateman 14, and Dyami Brown 15. And then consensus has Reshod Bateman 11, Jaylen Waddle 12, Mac Jones 13, Rondale Moore 14, and Terrace Marshall 15. So the differences here are...
Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, so the differences are they are higher than us on Reshod Bateman. They have him at 11. We have him at 15, I believe, or 14. And they have Terrace Marshall at 15. We don't even have him in our top 15. But we have Jaylen Waddle higher than them. We have got Jaylen Waddle all the way up at 109. They've got him at 112. So there's 3 big discrepancies here.
We're also up on Mac Jones 2 picks too. I mean, it's not a ton, but like
everyone always forgets how valuable quarterbacks are in Superflex until midseason hits.
Yeah, I feel like that's why I had him at 112, especially if he gets drafted in the top 15. I have a hard time putting him beyond 15. Beyond the first round in a Superflex draft. Like, he's getting drafted in the top 15.
Yeah, and this is just a common tip. If a quarterback goes top 15 in real life, they shouldn't fall out of your first round of your Superflex rookie draft.
Unless it's Dwayne Haskins.
True.
Well, yeah.
we all kind of knew about Dwayne Haskins, what was going on there. The Washington football team was just a tough organization to trust. But yeah, I mean, I talked about Reshod Bateman, why I'm really high on him. You guys talked about why you're low on him. Same thing with Jaylen Waddle. Honestly, same thing with Terrace Marshall. And, that kind of gets to where now it gets more interesting and more players that we haven't talked about, right? Because then we move on past those picks. So now when we're talking about 12-team Superflex drafts, right? We're in the middle of the second round. So at 204, which would be pick 16, at 204 we've got Elijah Moore, 205 Kellen Mond, likely due to Frank, 206 Tylan Wallace, 207 Jamar Jefferson, and 208 Terrace Marshall. While
207 for us is Gainwell.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Gainwell. And 208 Terrace Marshall. While they have Gainwell all the way up at 204, Elijah Moore at 205, Michael Carter 206, Tylan Wallace 207, Jamar Jefferson at 208. So the big ones here are they are higher on Gainwell than we are by about 4 picks, as well as Michael Carter. And I feel like a lot of that lies in I'm kind of lower on Michael Carter than consensus. I've talked about him a couple podcasts ago. And they're also higher on Kenneth Gainwell than us. Which I'm starting to come around on, guys. I'm starting to like Kenneth Gainwell. What do you think?
I love Kenneth Gainwell. He plays so hard. One thing that, I think of all these running backs, though, Kenneth Gainwell's got a decent shot of maybe sneaking into the end of the second round, which will start shooting him up. Because I think that's the one thing that it seems like all these drafts are waiting for right now, is that they're looking to see if one of these running backs is going to sneak into the end of the second round, whether it's Gainwell, Carter, Jefferson, whoever, right? You can just insert running back name. They sneak into the second, all of a sudden they're going to shoot up draft boards, and they might sneak up towards the end of the first, and then you're going to start hearing all those people say the Tampa Bay running back's name.
Keyshawn Vaughn.
Yeah. Then you're just going to hear everyone saying, oh, Keyshawn Vaughn. And then you're going to be like the other people saying, oh, but he's good. He's a second-round pick. It's just going to be this whole mess. It's going to be hilarious.
Yeah, it's once the NFL draft happens, the rookie drafts and the debate over the rookie drafts before the NFL season, it's going to be bloodshed. It's going to be a bloodbath.
But Kellen Mond. I don't know who.
Okay, I'm telling you now, and I'm sure you guys both know this, so I guess this is more to the viewers. Kellen Mond is going to rise on everyone's consensus when they see how early he goes in the real-life NFL draft.
Yeah,
I don't know who's so high on Kellen Mond, but
yeah, Kellen Mond.
I think he's all right.
Kellen Mond is much different. We've got him at 205. We're according to our rankings, we're willing to pick him in the middle of the second. They've got him a whole round behind at 305. Consensus does. So I feel like the majority of that is Frank really driving it, but
I had him pretty high. I had Kellen Mond. Let me find it.
It is while you look for it, I will just chime in. It is interesting when we're getting around this point, I'm not really going to bat or dying on a hill for most of these prospects. So, like, getting a quarterback probably has your best chance of getting more value, because if you could get a starting quarterback, and according to Frank, one that's more likely to be a quarterback one than some others, fantasy wise, and you're getting him in the middle of the second round, that's great value. That's insane value, really.
Yeah,
So,
JT, you can go fuck yourself for putting him at the very last pick. I feel like
you're
that was
lucky
almost
I've
just
got
to
him in
spite
my,
me.
Yeah.
Make that my
You're
option.
lucky. You're lucky I've got him in mind, because I originally I wasn't going to, but I was like,
Yeah, I would have rather you just left him off than put him at the very last pick.
What I did do is I left Tony off. I left Tony completely off.
It's blatant
At least I didn't do that. It's not disrespect. It's just facts. My rankings are facts. They are law. They're the right ones. They're the only ones.
One thing I will say, though, real quick.
JT destroys Tony Truther with facts and logic.
I'm kind of out on Terrace Marshall, to be honest. I watched a lot of tape. Initially, I did like him. Man, I just... He's inconsistent. He doesn't try half the snaps, mainly when he's not getting the football. Like, he's in this weird middle where it's like he has some reps where he produces on the outside, and then other reps where he gets shut down, and then you put him in the slot, and sometimes he produces, and sometimes he gets shut down. Tape just very inconsistent. I understand there's a lot of people that are really high on him, but I have him in this same tier where it's like, you know, a lot of people like him and are drafting him. What, like, his consensus is 203?
Yeah,
like, dude,
second.
last year and basically every draft, I could have picked up a Brandon Ayuk at 203. I would much rather have right now a Dyami Brown at 203. Even like Kellen Mond, Mac Jones if he falls, Rondale Moore. Like, I feel like these guys are way above, for at least in my opinion, Terrace Marshall as a prospect. So I am out on Terrace Marshall.
By the way, just to clarify to the thing earlier, Frank had Kellen Mond at 108. I have him at 202, so I think he's worth a top 3 pick in the second round. And then JT's, I don't even want to say it.
Once again, it does depend on, like, I'm not saying to go out here and at 108 pick up Kellen Mond, because, like, if I were in that scenario, I would trade down and just pick up value and then pick up Kellen Mond early in the second round. Like, I'm not saying that you should go out here and draft Kellen Mond early in the first round. It's just, when push comes to shove, I think that Kellen Mond's just got just as much of a chance of being a high-end quarterback as these guys that are being picked really highly right now.
Personally, I just don't see it with Kellen Mond, but...
Yeah, go watch the tape, JT.
I watched the tape.
Watch the tape.
I've told you we've debated this before. I'm not... him not buying.
All right, let's move on, though.
Let's
move on.
Yeah, okay. We're getting pretty close to wrapping it up, actually. We'll finish up the second round here, and then we'll wrap up with the third round. So now we're looking at around 208, 209, where... So we had Terrace Marshall at 208, Trey Sermon 209, Michael Carter 210, Chuba Hubbard 211, and Kardarius Toney 212, which is likely due to me keeping him off my board. Consensus had Jamar Jefferson 208, Amon-Ra St. Brown 209, Toney at 210, Dyami Brown at 211, and Chuba Hubbard at 212. So what really stands out here is Dyami Brown, and maybe Jamar Jefferson as well. Because it does seem like consensus is a lot higher on Jamar Jefferson than we are, and we're a lot higher on Dyami Brown than consensus is. We have Dyami Brown like almost a full round higher, and then Jamar Jefferson, they have almost like half a round higher, maybe a little more. So those are the two guys I guess we'll really focus on. I guess we can even skip Dyami Brown because Frank and I told everyone about our love for Dyami Brown, what we believe in him. I guess consensus just doesn't really see that yet, but I agree.
Once he gets good draft capital, if he does, I think he's going to shoot up.
I think he's a prime target to be shooting up boards.
I think it's the same thing with Jamar. I don't think that Jamar is going to go anywhere near as high as others seem to believe.
Because you think he won't get drafted high. So he'll drop.
Yeah, I have him valued as like a 5th round prospect.
Yeah, everyone tries to. Yeah, I was gonna say every year. I'm attacking R-Dynasty directly. Every year, like it's always some late round running back who they try to force up just because everyone's desperate for running backs. Like seen it with Darwin Thompson, seen it with what's his face? Keyshawn
Keyshawn
Vaughn.
Vaughn.
Yeah, it happens every single year.
All right,
People
but those
overrate
are
the late round running backs.
those are the two main guys that we're really different on. So we're higher on Dyami Brown, lower on Jamar Jefferson. Although I'm okay with Jamar Jefferson. I actually kind of like him. I think he'll be
Yeah, and you're the
a decent
worst.
prospect. Sorry. All
I
right.
think he's my
Third
RB7.
round.
301 to 306. We've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, which is a little lower. Nico Collins, who we have a little higher than consensus. Jamar Jefferson, we talked about. Tamorion Terry at 304. 305.
Dude, they don't even have Nico Collins in there on the mock.
Yeah, when we're getting into this zone, it does get a little hazy with where people have certain players. 305 Kyle Trask, 306 Seth Williams. So we could stop there and talk real quick. The real difference is at 301, consensus has Pat Freiermuth, 302 Tamorian Terry, 303 Kyle Trask, 304 Trey Sermon, 305 Kellen Mond. Obviously, we talked about Kellen Mond while we're higher on him, mostly thanks to Frank, which puts him like a full round higher. Kyle Trask is about the same. So the two guys that we got to focus on here are Pat Freiermuth, who we are lower on, and Trey Sermon, who we are higher on. Trey Sermon, I think we talked about a decent amount. I'm pretty high on Trey Sermon, and you just go watch his most recent games. I feel like he could be a decent back in the NFL, but obviously I don't feel that highly about him because I'm only willing to pick him at like a mid-second round pick. Meanwhile, we've got Pat Freiermuth at 301, who is he even on some of our boards? I feel like he's at the
He's
end
at the
of
very
Jake's
bottom
board.
of mine. Well, because
Yeah,
I think the big difference is let me find mine really quick. I think the big difference is, and I think it'll change, that some of us, it might be all of us, don't have him as tight end too.
yeah, I don't have him as tight end too. I've got
Yeah, I
Brevin
don't
Jordan. We're kind of equal with consensus on Brevin Jordan though, but I'm higher on Brevin Jordan than Pat Freiermuth. I don't really see it with Pat Freiermuth. I think it's Kyle Pitts, and then as Frank loves to say, the wasteland. I just don't see any of those guys really ending up being.
Here's the thing with Brevin Jordan and Freiermuth, where I think if you talk real life NFL, they're pretty equal. But if we're talking fantasy with receiving, I think Jordan's the better receiver. So that's what matters here.
I agree, yeah, but I just, to be honest, maybe Brevin Jordan ends up being something. Maybe he doesn't. I mean, that's why I've got him in like the early third. I think I have him.
It's a huge drop off after Pitts. Like no one's even close.
Yeah.
Man, it is a crime that they have Kyle Trask over Kellen Mond, and even Trey Sermon to a certain extent.
I do have Kyle Trask over Kellen Mond, albeit
Yeah, but we already
and
established that you're the worst.
I mean, they're 311 and 312 in my rankings, so like it's not big.
I like Tamorion Terry.
That's disrespectful.
This mock seems to be pretty high on him. I think the problem with Tamorion Terry is that we don't know what the hell happened at Florida State with his off the field issues and the fact that he got into a fight with the team. To be honest, after watching their offense, I think I would too, so I can't really blame him. Then it's like, dude, he's so inconsistent. Like, you can tell that his technique is just kind of crap, which I think is going to kill his draft stock a little bit. I like his talent, but, if he comes out and he's a 5th round pick, statistically speaking, you've only got, like, so much of a chance of hitting. So that's a tough one. To be honest, I haven't watched the tight ends, so I'm not even going to talk about the tight ends.
If Terry boosts himself up into a day 2 pick, he'll definitely fly up my boards. I don't think it's going to happen, but he is someone I like if he gets the decent draft capital. All right, summing up the last ones, we're going to wrap it up here. 307 to 312. 307, we have Dwayne Eskridge. 308, Brevin Jordan, who we just talked about. 309, Pat Freiermuth, also talked about. 310, Demetric Felton. 311, Amari Rogers. And 312, Tutu Atwell. A very different board from Consensus, who has Brevin Jordan at 307, Kylan Hill at 308, Ramondre Stevenson at 309, Dwayne Eskridge at 310, Jarrett Patterson 311, and Amari Rogers at 312. So there are some guys on here that we have that they don't. They have some guys that we don't. This is kind of where we get into, it's literally dartboard throws. Like, I don't know what the statistics are on what late round thirds actually end up hitting, but I gotta imagine it can't be that high.
Dude, this is my zone. All right, I am the third, fourth round master.
This is where you could get a lot of value though if you hit, but I'm not willing to bet on it. I don't really feel comfortable relying on any of these guys or really expecting anything from the guys that I have from 307 to 312. They've kind of all just seemed like roster cloggers to me.
I don't know. I like Demetric Felton. I think that he's a guy that has a ton of potential. I think the problem is that he could run into that issue. We don't really know what he is. He might switch to a receiver. He might stay a running back. So that's a little bit dicey. But I'll tell you what, Tutu Atwell, outside of the third round possibly, could be a really good get. I understand the whole Tutu Atwell, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah that came out and had him as like a top 20 prospect initially, and now he's not even in his top 50. So like there was an initial surge of people being like, "What the fuck, Tutu Atwell?" I still like Tutu Atwell a little bit. I don't think he should go outside of the third round in a draft. I see a lot of Mike Wallace in him. I think he's a guy that in that intermediate space of the field, there's a lot to be desired, but 9 routes, corners, as well as throw it to him behind the line of scrimmage, the dude's just got speed, like NFL level speed. So he plays bigger than he is. I like Tutu Atwell as like a third round pick, dart throw. Same thing with Demetric Felton. The guys that they have, I'm out on a lot of them. Like Amari Rodgers, I'm probably not picking up. Jarrett Patterson and Kylan Hill are kind of jags to me. I like Ramondre.
I think Jarrett Patterson also had a terrible pro day. I think Jarrett Patterson
I'm
had
not
a really
surprised.
bad pro day. Yeah. So,
dude, watching some of those games, I think he plays in the MAC, right?
Yeah, Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo, they're in the MAC. Like, dude, some of those games, like, I love MAC football, and I watch a ton of small-ass college football. I was watching some South Alabama tape before we came on the podcast, but, like, dude, the games that they played in was a freaking clown fiesta. It was hard to watch.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking late third round picks, that's what they're going to end up being.
Take the
but
yeah.
I think this is a good place to wrap it up. We got through a lot today. We did our wide receiver rankings. We did our big boards. Jake couldn't be with us. We could have, talked down to him about something.
He's got to address his now Jaylen Waddle over Devonta Smith.
we'll grill him on the next episode. We'll grill him next episode.
Yeah, what the hell?
I got
just left me stranded out here.
Yeah. You guys remember that mock draft?
I mean,
that was like the big segment on the podcast. It was me and Jake against the Decepticons, and then all of a sudden now he's a Decepticon,
and now he's not here.
I'll take all believers, but it is kind of funny how Jake flipped. I mean, maybe me and Lewis are just that convincing. We have the facts.
I don't know, and he's running. He's running.
Yeah, I'm not apparently.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Episode 30 in the books. Only a couple weeks away from the NFL draft. Stay tuned.
Again,
comment, subscribe.
I was just going to give a heads up. I'll be reminding you guys at the end of each of our podcasts, but we're doing a live stream the night of the draft, just talking about each pick's significance to Dynasty football.
And fantasy live draft or draft stream. Fantasy related. I botched that.
And we should have the picks coming a little bit before cable, and it'll be more fun than watching.
We're going to just ignore defense. We might look at guards or something and tackles if they help some random players.
Defense is in the draft?
What? Yeah.
There's someone with a dynasty. There's someone with a dynasty IDP league being like, "What the hell, man?"
I also heard
IDP leagues in shambles.
We're getting special guests. I heard Tom Brady will be joining us. Peyton Manning might make a guest appearance. So stay tuned for those big athletes to also give their
Deshaun Watson watching.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right. We're done. We're out of here. Thank you, everyone. Comment, subscribe. See you.